Howdy folks, Doc here with Last Best Tool, and I've got 3 new products from Olight I want to show you. They're actually having their big sale, kind of an O-Fan sale. And again, what I appreciate about Olight is that they keep pushing the envelope. They keep modifying and updating and advancing their designs. I have not seen a company be able to do that this fast. And every time, it's not these small incremental updates, it's fairly significant updates, and a lot of it feels user-driven, which is kind of interesting. So I've got a new knife, new larger flashlight, and a new smaller flashlight. So let's start out with the knife. I love knives. This is the Olight Freeze 2. An update of the Freeze. It uses full carbon fiber scales. You can see they're overlaid on top of a stainless steel liner, 2 stainless steel standouts there. Open back design, uses a liner lock. So this is actually a nice, strong, significant lockup. Great drop point blade. And it's kind of reminiscent, if I pop out a couple of my other knives I like, the blade shape is very similar to the Benchmade Bug Out. A little bit more flare on the top of the Olight. Another similar one might be the Adamas Mini. The blade on this is, the point stays a little higher, but still a drop point, but the handles were similar in size. I really love the aggressive jimping on this one, but this has a nice long jimp top. The feel in your hand when you're using it, I mean, it feels a lot like a fixed blade knife. In fact, it looks like a fixed blade knife. It doesn't have that kind of general overall appearance of a folding knife. It almost looks like a fixed blade with a big old bolster there instead of a pivot. But it has a really fast, nice, clean deployment. I've done this probably 2,000 times. No problems whatsoever. I did actually snug it up just a little bit with a Torx wrench to slow it down. When it came out of the box, it was lightning fast, and I usually give it a pretty good clip on the back, so I didn't need it quite as fast. I wanted to slow it, but you can tune it to whatever your preference is. The 2 things that are pretty advanced for this knife compared, obviously the carbon fiber, but Olight is using a 154 cm blade. And 154 cm is a super steel. It's one of the basic super steels, but that's like saying it's, you know, the beginner Lamborghini or beginner Ferrari or something like that. And then they go up from there. So it's a crucible steel, and the particular combination of elements in it make it hold an edge as well as allow you to put an edge on it. Better than many of the traditional steels, like a high carbon steel. I mean, the amazing steel's been around since cowboy days. But they rust. They're easy to put an edge on, but they don't hold the edge near as long. So they've gone to stainless steels a lot of times, and those stainless steels might hold the edge longer, but make it a little tougher to put it on, put a sharp edge on. And then it's also what's the theoretical sharpness you can actually get. And coming out of the box, this is razor sharp, and 154 cm, my experience, has been good. I like it. The shape of the blade is kind of neat. There's a, you know, sort of it begins to look like it's going to go into a swedge here. I don't know if that's ornamental or if there's a strengthening that comes from that particular angle or faceting of the blade. But it narrows right here and then expands out again, widens out to the full thickness before dropping to that nice drop point tip. 2 things, the carbon fiber and the blade steel, those are great updates and a nice light. This is only 3.6 ounces. Carries well. There are 2 things I did notice. One is it would be nice if there maybe was a little bit more aggressive jimping in the deployment lever there for the flipper, the flipping lever. I've noticed if it's wet, you know, sometimes, if you look at this, there are 2 notches there, there are 3 here. They're fairly smooth compared to these. That's a lot more. But if you look at something like this, I mean, just real heavy-duty jimping is great. Or, let's go to this. This was the Olight Splint that I did a video on a little bit ago. It's a different character of knife, but the jimping on this fairly aggressive right there. Plus, on the lever, you can see they really went to town on it. So I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more jimping right there on that, just to give it a better purchase for a more accurate feel when you're deploying it. The other thing I noticed is the pocket clip, and pocket clips are always an interesting thing. It's like we certainly haven't dialed those in. Now, one of the things I've noticed carrying it, sure, that it's deep enough, I don't mind that, but if you notice, it actually has a taper, but not much of one. If I run this out, pull that off here, this out and keep it on the pocket clip, you can see at the end of the knife, I'm nowhere near it. So this is actually up quite high. Plus, it's almost at the same level across the top. Let's compare that. Well, here's another Olight. If you look at this, there's a strong taper down. You can see it's still above, but if I tip that to actually intersect this part here, instead of just follow it across the top, you can see that I do hit the knife. In fact, I hit it right about there. So this is a lower profile. It's obvious when you look at these two together. And I did notice that this is sticking out quite a ways. And I did catch it on things. And that's why I went and started looking at it. In fact, I had to take it off once and rebend it. Not a big deal, but something to notice. As you see there, there is a strong difference. Let me move my finger a little bit in how far that floats. Compare that to Benchmade. If you look at this, here's the Benchmade. It runs straight down fairly quick and stays low. If I come out here, you can see there's a significant rise in the height of this to the height down here. So this disappears. It doesn't get caught near as easily on things. It might be a little harder to set in your pocket. This actually does drop into your pocket very quickly. But that's the trade-off. And I found I've gotten so used to maybe even prying them or working it into my pocket that I'm not, I don't need that. I'd rather have it not be able to catch, because that's what's sticking out of your pocket. Grab an Olight thing here. So if I have that, you can see there's quite a bit. Here's a Benchmade. This is the bug out. So you can see, maybe if I fold that, that there's not much to catch there. There's a much bigger handle to catch there. So that's one thing I noticed, just pointing that out. So just a little more jimping, and that a different. In fact, even the the splint pocket clip would be fine. But those are the two things. Otherwise, it's a great knife. I've been carrying it all day long, every day since I got it from them, and I have had, zero issues. I do like it. This is fairly smooth. In fact, it's very smooth. I don't mind that because it rides well in the pocket, and I like the feel of carbon fiber. You can see a little close-up there. Laser etching. The Freeze 2 with serial number. Flawless coming out of the box. Here's the close. If you look at that, perfect landing right down the center of the runway. Anyway, nice. The next thing, I got the Baton III flashlight. This is the Pro version. They have updated a few things. This is the former Baton III. So what's the first thing you notice? Obviously, that large button, right? Significantly larger. And in fact, they've also recessed it. You see that across the top compared to the previous Baton? That is to help eliminate accidental discharge there, or turning it on when you don't mean to have it turned on. This one, you still have those shoulders, the shoulders that buttress the button. But this one is actually sunk in. And it's a lot larger, much easier to find, much easier to index. Of course, there's a difference on the front end, too. Now, a lot of the Olight flashlights, like this one, have a proximity sensor built in, and that proximity sensor is to protect you or protect from unintentional heating of something if the light is on and it gets too close. The proximity sensor dials back the power out of the light to a safer level for something that close. But this occupied a bit of the reflector. There was a loss of performance there by having that proximity sensor take up some of the real estate of the reflector. See the proximity sensor here? No, you don't, because it's hidden. It's actually back inside the light, and they've got an increased bezel here with more information about what type of light is in here. And the proximity sensor's down inside. So it does sense that. So if I turn it on, go to full speed here, and then as I get close, you see it dials down right there. That's that safety feature. And that is designed to prevent overheating of something, but also, as we know, there have been issues with some of these high-powered lights where people actually have gotten a burn or melted something unintentionally. So what else? Obviously, you might have noticed there is a size difference, and the size difference is because there's a battery difference. This is going with a full 18650 3200 milliamp hour battery, which gives it a phenomenal 1500 lumens out the front end, or dial it down to 600 for 17 hours, 120 lumens for 100 hours. That's crazy. And half a lumen for basically a third of a year. However, one of the things we liked about the Baton was the size, and this is half again as large. And we already have lights in that category, like this. There's the Warrior Mini 2. So we're approaching, something that size. In fact, if you look at the button placement, we're gaining just a tiny bit at the bottom, or maybe not at all, since this is extended because it has a tail cap switch, whereas this does not. And then this has got a stronger or front end, a bigger front end with that proximity sensor. So it's approaching this light. So what's the difference? We're seeing kind of a convergent evolution, and one of the ways that they dealt with that, going with, they're basically working with one of their most popular products, so you have to be a little careful here. They have redesigned the pocket clip. It's much longer. It's a little bit wider. You can see that right up front, right up there. It's a wider pocket clip, two-way. Bends are a little bit different, so they're working on a better carrying of a larger light. But honestly, this carries heavier and longer. You do notice that. So they're working into a sweet size. It's about a finger size almost. Usually there's when you start working with things, there's almost a hand size. You work with a knife and you get into, it's a palm size. That's like a bushcraft knife, or a palm width. That's common where that size comes from. There's usually reasons. Well, we seem to be doing about the same here. We're dialing in the size, kind of like your cell phone. We've gone too big and too small. We're getting down to that Goldilocks feel. But anyway, overall, great light. I love the thick bezel. I just like the look of it. And it's also got a recessed lens on the front end, whereas if you compare that here, this has a little bit extended crenulated bezel there, but a flat lens. So they are working with some other stuff. Anyway, overall great. Next thing is this iMorse. The iMorse, as in Morse code, has Morse code on it, as a matter of fact, is like an update of this light, which is one of my favorites. These little keychain lights. This is the original size here, and I'm glad they call it the iMorse, because I can never remember the name of this thing. I have to keep looking it up, and this is the I1R2 EOS, if you can remember that. I'll be a quiz at the end of this video. But anyway, this has gone to the same size. They've just changed the shape, or the knurling on it, making kind of a special markup for the release of a new kind of, remember Olight's sort of a lifestyle company. They're going into a larger market with a lot more stuff, and this here is the website basically. So the USB-C charging, which is great, which I should mention here, this does have some distractors. When you have to have a proprietary, especially an older USB connector in a world that pretty much everything's USB-C now. So that's another bit of a drawback still, is they're using that, and there's no tail switch if you're used to that on this kind of a light. If you're coming from this and you've got a little longer one, you're not going to notice because this doesn't have one either. However, if you're coming down from a larger light, you might notice there's no tail switch. But anyway, back to this guy. I love this size. The price is great. They're simple, they're dependable. This thing fires out 180 lumens on full blast. The last's only 23 minutes, but it's a keychain light, or 5 lumens for about 12 hours. And 5 lumens is plenty for an awful lot of stuff. And that USB-C charging means you can fire it up and be ready whenever you leave on your next adventure. Anyway, those are the 3 big things that I got from Olight. They have actually quite a few new releases, which is pretty neat that they keep innovating, and they definitely have taken a page out of the Apple computer playbook. If you watch any of their new videos, especially their main release one, it is straight out of what Apple does. Now I remember the old days when there were often trade shows like Comdex or Consumer Electronics Show, that one's still going, or SHOT Show. And that I first saw Olight at the SHOT Show years ago, and a lot of times people would wait for the new releases at one time of the year, whenever that show was, and that's where you'd go, fly down, learn about it. Well, now they're releasing on their own whenever they want, and generally it's incremental. But Olight seems to like to have events where they drop a handful of new products and try them out, see how it goes. They drop a lot of updates. I mean, it's amazing that they can keep up with this schedule, but they always seem to do things that are in the right direction. You don't go, oh, why'd they do that? Or, that's interesting. They produce stuff we didn't know we needed. And that's another thing that we find out about as we use more of their products. But anyway, thought I'd bring these to your attention. I'm pleased to be kind of the recipient of some of the Olight things. They always ask me. I'm not sponsored or anything, but I do get contacted by Olight, and I've asked for some things and not got them, but they send me the things that I okay for them to send me. So I can try them out, and then I carry them around and deliver them here. I will point out this. I do like this little guy. This came out. This is the iMini. It's just quite handy. Can pop it free. It actually takes batteries, but I pulled this off a key ring. And if you're not going to use it much and you want to have something just in case, some little tiny thing, that's a worthwhile one. Anyway, I have a code for a discount if you order off their store. I'm not sure what all it's on, but you can try it. And I will keep you updated as they keep advancing, because that's what I have fun doing, is trying out new products, seeing how they compare, because that's how I learn. And with that, Doc out.